Welcome to Breakthrough with Champs, and I'm so excited to have Craig Valentine today. And he's a 1999 world champion of public speaking and the creator of world-class speaking coach program and a professional speaker. And that makes him my grandmaster. Well, welcome, Craig.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
1999, it's such a long time ago. It's the last millennium. Close out the millennium of world champions.
Yeah, well, it feels like to me that 2014, when I got certified by World Class Speaking Coach, that's a long time ago.
Yeah. We're in our 9th year now.
Oh, okay.
The program now. As a matter of fact, we just finished the 3rd week of this new class.
Great.
And I'm just so excited. It's one of the best things I've ever created because there are people who are coaching people that I'll never get an opportunity to coach.
Right.
There are people who are speaking to audiences that I'll never be in front of.
Right.
And so it's just, when it comes to legacy and reach, we've been able to reach a lot of people that way.
Yeah, exactly. So the graduates like myself are becoming professional speakers or coaches. And you see graduates every year from the program. And from your perspective, what does it take to become a successful professional speaker?
Well, I think you need to be a master storyteller, a master storyteller for the art of public speaking. But I also think you need to master marketing. You know, when I first started speaking, I thought, hey, I'm an artist. People will just come and respect my art, and they'll come see me speak, and they'll hire me. And I'm an artist for probably like the first 5 or 6 years of my speaking career. That's how I look at myself as an artist. That's a long battle to fight. It's like 2 years longer than the Civil War. I was fighting that battle. Then I looked up one day and I realized, you know what? I'm a starving artist. And I need to master marketing. And so that year I said, you know what? I'm going to drop out of my PhD program and I'm going to spend all my time trying to master marketing. And that's what I did. And I read 62 books on marketing that first year. And I started to increase my marketing muscle. And the more I did that, the more I got booked, the more I got coaching clients, and the more I mastered marketing, the more my business grew. So I would say you've got to be able to master the art, but you also have to be able to master the business.
Okay.
You have to have multiple streams of speaking income to really make this work.
Right. So I'm sure there are a lot of marketing tips that you can provide, but in a nutshell, what is it that you have to do, or what do you see in common for successful professional speakers? What are they doing successfully?
Well, I think that the framework is the same when it comes to marketing. You want to do permission marketing, which is what Seth Godin wrote a book on, and that's getting people to give you permission to market to them.
Right.
So, for example, 52 Speaking Tips has been a groundbreaker for me. If you go to 52speakingtips.com, you'll see. And I let every audience know. I say, raise your hand if a year from now you'd like to be at least 3 times better than the speaker you are today. Well, it doesn't matter who I'm speaking to, all hands go up. And I say, great. Then for free, for absolutely no fee, you can go to one of my websites, which is 52speakingtips.com. That's 52speakingtips.com. And for every week for over a year, you're going to get an audio lesson from me. And at the end of that year, you will be at least 3 times better than the speaker you are today. Natsuyo, people have gone there in droves. And it's built up my business because all of these people have given me their name and email address and said, market to me. And so they get 52 weeks of free but wonderful, valuable content. And then usually after about the 7th or 8th week, they say, wow, if I can get all this for free, what can I get if I have to pay for something?
Right.
And then they start buying, they start investing, and the rest is history. And I'm built connects with all of them, and the rest is history for me and for them.
Right. And I think this 52 Speaking Tips is one of your millions of different ways to communicate with the audience, right?
It is, and I think if you have expertise in anything, you should go out and get the domain 52somethingtips.com. And if you can't do 52 tips, do a half a year. Do 26 tips. If you can't do 26 tips, do a quarter. Do a quarter of a year. Do 12 or 13 tips. But you're going to have to offer something very valuable to get people to exchange their name and email address with you.
Right. And you're selling this 52 speaking tips masterfully, because if you said, well, you're going to get emails from me 52 consecutive weeks, people are not going to want that, right?
Yeah. Don't sell the product, sell the result.
Right, exactly.
And always put the result before the resource.
Which is 3 times better as speaker.
Exactly. Yep. The result is 3 times better, and the resource is 52 speaking tips. And like you said, if I did it the other way around, it would have been like, raise your hand if you'd like to receive 52 emails from me.
No, thank you.
I don't think my opt-in rate would be as high.
Right.
So always remember, never sell a product, always sell the result.
Right.
Always put the result before the resource. Or in leadership. You want to get somebody to do something, always state the result before the request.
Right. And story does that, right?
It certainly does. Storytelling.
Yeah, and you're such a master of storytelling, and you always keep your audience at the edge of their seats. And I've heard your story or same stories over and over again, but I never get tired of it. And I think part of the greatness of your storytelling is, I mean, there are many, but one of them is a powerful, memorable phrases. How do you create that? How do you come up with great phrases?
Well, I think over time they honestly kind of come up with me. You know, it might be in the middle of the night, it might be when I'm jogging. These phrases come to me, but I think what happened was, because I've been coaching people for so long, I had to find very succinct ways to say things. And I had to help other people in their speeches find very succinct ways to say things. And so I built that muscle of being able to quickly come up with a foundational phrase, or at least have it come up with me. So it's the first thing I look for. Like the story I tell about my son. We were watching the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Back in 2012, and we were watching. And he was 7 years old at the time, and there was the oldest person in the Olympics that year was a 74-year-old equestrian from Japan. And again, my 7-year-old son and I were watching this on TV, and unfortunately, all the commentators kept talking about was the guy's age. They just kept saying he's 74. They didn't believe he's 74. By golly, he's 74. Finally, my 7-year-old son looked up and said, "Well, how old is the horse?" And so when he said that, and this is going behind the curtain with me now, when he said that, I knew I had to turn that into a story because I couldn't stop laughing. My wife couldn't stop laughing. My daughter couldn't stop laughing. Although you'll recognize that they didn't make the cut of the story, because condensed to connect.
Right.
But I had to figure out what would be the point of that story. Well, a week later, after my son said this, I couldn't get his question out of my mind, so I Googled it. And they asked this man, they said, "How long will you continue to compete?" And guess what he said? He said, "I can go on forever, but my horse is 15. And that's when I realized my son's question was much more relevant than I thought.
Yeah.
And he taught me something very important about being strong, about getting remarkable results in life. Never stop asking questions. Never stop. So you see, Natsuyo, what I did there? As soon as I knew I was going to tell this story, I went out and I searched for what would be a good foundational phrase. Now, not the best foundational phrase I have,
but you're searching for it.
Something that will be remembered.
Great. I guess it comes with practice too. You know, you have to do it over and over and constantly thinking about it.
It does. And what I like about that foundational phrase is it's usually toward the beginning of my speech. So now I can make the rest of my speech basically be questions.
Right.
Stop asking questions. Now I'm going to ask a question like, by the way, I got a question for you. What do you think is the number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams?
Right.
At another point, I ask another question. And I always go back to, remember my son. Never stop asking questions.
So tying to your foundational phrase.
The theme. It's like river that runs through it.
Yeah, exactly. So, when you're...
Nice picture, by the way. It's a nice picture.
Oh, thank you. Well, unfortunately, the viewer of this video can't see it. Well, all they see is your beautiful face. So, talking about a story, in business, right? I sometimes hear from my clients that, well, I I'm a researcher, or I'm a doctor, or I'm a physician, and I give very serious presentations. And how do I incorporate the story into business presentation? In their mind, when they ask me those questions, they're thinking stories are very personal, and it's for motivational speeches or inspirational speeches. What would you suggest as to how they can incorporate stories into the business or most serious business presentations?
Well, there's a couple prongs to this. One is understanding that personal stories actually do make professional points. So, for example, when I graduated with my MBA from Johns Hopkins University, my wife threw me this great big surprise party. And people came from all over the place. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, wow, this is great. But I'd much rather have a one-on-one dinner with my wife. Because that's who I am. Mm-hmm. That's who I am. When my wife graduated with her graduate degree, I threw her a one-on-one dinner. Mm-hmm. But what do you think she wanted? A surprise party. Right? See, we gave each other what we ourselves wanted.
Right.
And do you know how many relationships, whether it's managers and employees or it's husband and wife, you know how many relationships are messed up because of this?
Yeah.
People give each other what they themselves wanted. So Tony Alexander came up with what's called the Platinum Rule, and that's treat people the way they want to be treated, meet people the way where they are. Mm-hmm. And I've been trying to follow that rule ever since. But do you see how that personal story about my wife and me made a professional point about any relationship that you have, whether it's with your boss or it's with a prospect or so forth. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to understand that personal stories can make professional points. Right. But the other piece to that is when it comes to business presentations, always think about the end user. Mm-hmm. Think about the end user and the end user's story. Think about how the end user's life is right now, what conflicts they're facing, and how your product, service, or whatever you have can be a cure for them, and give some examples.
Right.
You know, when I used to sell textbooks for one of the largest textbook companies in the world, I would give stories about how the students use the textbooks. I would give stories about how the teachers use the textbooks.
Right.
And so it was a business presentation, but it has stories all over the place.
Right, exactly. And along the same line, and this is going to be a final question, in the story you talk about 4 F's, right? Tell a story that's one of the 4 F's: failure, flaws, first, and frustrations. Right?
Tell stories about your failures, your flaws, your frustrations, and your firsts.
How do you talk about the 4 F's without looking too vulnerable as a business person? You want to portray yourself as a successful business person or a company, but while talking about 4 F's, how do you balance that?
Well, just with the presentation that you and I just worked on, for example, you might tell a story about where you failed. Like I tell a story about where I failed in Michigan as a speaker. But then you fast forward to where I am today, and I have an 89% rehire rate. Mm-hmm. Well, people want to know, how did I go from being a failure to being a big success and building my business off of repeat business and so forth. People want to know, what was the path? What got me from A to B? Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, Natsuyo, if I had never failed, people would think, oh, well, any strategy is going to work for him because he's just a natural.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But if they know that I failed, if I take myself off of that pedestal, then they'll think and they'll understand, oh, he failed, I failed. So if he can do it, I can do it. And that's the key. So the quick answer to your question is you balance it by sharing some of the successes that you've had since some of your failures.
Great.
And I think that's extremely important. However, like I said before, if you just talk about success after success after success, then your audience is going to think, oh, of course the strategies work for him, he's a natural. The absolute worst thing you can have your audience think about you is that you're special.
Right.
The best thing you can have them think about you is that you're similar. Similar to them.
Right.
And you do that by taking yourself off any pedestal that they might put you on.
Right, exactly.
So now, one last thing I'll say about that.
Yeah.
you're selling a process. You're building up a process. So, for example, if I was telling you, or if I was trying to influence you to use your imagination, then I'm going to share a story about how I use imagination, but I'm not going to lift myself up.
Right.
I'm going to lift up imagination.
Right.
So I always say, put the process, imagination, not put the process, not the person on the pedestal.
Right. So you are not the one who's special about it, but it's a process. So everyone can follow the process, and you can become a successful person too.
Exactly. I'm a normal, similar person with a special process that you can have.
Right. So telling a story and making a connection and making a point and making a connection with the audience.
That's it.
So that's the key to the speech.
Like this is a first right now. You know what this is a first I'm having right now? Yeah. I'm using a new computer. I have no idea where to look.
That's why you're not looking at the camera. Oh, now, there you are. Now you're looking straight into me.
There's a camera right there. Okay.
Right.
There we go. You know, that can help me connect as well. But
great.
Again, I'll tell a story about this one day. I did a whole program with Natsuyo, and I have no idea where to look.
Fantastic. Great. Well, thank you so much, Craig, for sharing your insights. You're a great storyteller, and I'm learning a lot from you, and I'm sure the viewer of this video learned a lot from you in the last 10 minutes. So thank you so much, Craig, and thank you for watching. And this is Natsuyo Lipschutz, and see you again soon. All right, Craig, thank you.
I just found out there's the camera right over here.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. Oh, where's he looking at? But I didn't want to say that.
You could have said, I'm sorry. It's just, it's funny. It's like when I first met with Josephine, when she came out and had lunch with me one day, she wanted to do